this heat, dust, and isolation remain the perception of agriculture. However, in the 21st century, agriculture is an exciting, high-tech sector that feeds the world.
Hi there, good morning.
Yes.
Well, let me just turn my volume up here. There we go. I think that should be better now. Are you hearing us loud and clear?
Yes, perfectly now, sir.
Good morning, all good.
Good morning.
Thanks for making the time for us.
No problem.
It's a pleasure.
Yes, it's very interesting. We're calling you from Worcester in the Western Cape, and it's cold and raining, and I think it's probably snowing, and you're probably having wonderful weather there. I see short sleeves.
Yes.
I'm a bit hot. I've got a short sleeve jacket on, which is making me a bit hot.
No.
No, we love our winters here in Zimland. They are very, mild. Nothing compared to Cape Town.
Yeah, no, I was in Nelspruit last week, and it was shorts and short sleeves and pluckies and lovely.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I can see you guys are all wrapped up.
Right.
Go ahead, Dewald.
Thanks for joining us. And bit of background how we got to you guys. You guys got to us by looking to do some photos and videos for your new website and all those kind of things. But as it was, that didn't happen. But we're still very interested in your story because just a little bit that we learned by dealing with Barbara, it was really fascinating, the things that we saw from your company. So that's why I said, well, we would love to have you guys on the podcast still. So I think introduce yourselves. Who are you? What's your company? Just give us the broad background of that.
Okay.
Yeah, I can start. I'm Natalie McMurray. I'm one of the co-founders of Soil. So we were actually chatting the other day, and Soil's going to be 20 years next year. So it's been quite a long journey to where we've come. I was obviously with Grant when we started Soil, but I wasn't in the business at the time. Because one of us had to still work to get the company going, so that we still had an income every month. So Grant and I are married. We're husband and wife, and we have 3 young kids. So it's been a very adventurous and not boring journey these 20 years. We have our offices are on the North Coast in Zimland. And we're very privileged because our offices are on the farm and we are managing to do business in our beautiful surroundings. Yeah, and I'm sure as your questions come along, you'll hear more about Soil. My main role is more the finance side, but I'm very involved with the marketing as well and product development. And because we're a medium-sized company, Grant and I are still involved in a lot of aspects of the business. But we've got a good group of people now that we can rely on, which has made my life a bit more flexible, especially with 3 small kids. And so that is me.
Okay, yeah. So I'm Grant McMurray, the other half of this partnership. I think just to add on to what Natalie says, I think we're quite a well-diversified agri processing company. So our operations include primary agriculture, where we farming sugarcane. We've got about 500 hectares under sugarcane. We also recently, in the last 6 years, have started developing macadamia orchards. And by the end of August, we'll have 140 hectares of macadamia orchards. And then sort of what got us into agriculture is the essential oil side of our production. So we grow tea tree, lemon-scented tea tree, niaouli, lemongrass, palmarosa, a number of aromatic plants. And we've got an extraction facility here on the farm where we extract the essential oils. So that's we got one business that runs the agricultural side, the primary production. And then we have a second business, which is the company's called Felt Botanicals, and that houses our brands. So we have our branded aromatherapy products that we manufacture here on the farm in our own warehouses. And so that's an aromatherapy brand under our own brand, but then we also do quite a bit of private brand work for retailers both in South Africa and abroad in places like Sweden and the US.
Oh, fantastic. So a question that popped up now, did the other primary agriculture start after the
Yes.
the essential oils?
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much. So, I mean, Natalie and I are both accountants. We both grew up in Zululand, and we both grew up on farms, and we swore never to live in Zululand or go farm. But my father was farming up in a place called Melmoth, which is about an hour and a half from here. We were primarily in forestry, my family, and he was looking to step aside and wanted my brother to take over the forestry operations. But he wasn't ready to sit back and do nothing. So he was looking for a new crop to keep him busy. And he basically stumbled across essential oils. He was looking for a crop that ticked a whole lot of boxes. And after doing forestry, he was looking at something that was a relatively short rotation, that people wouldn't steal, that you could process on farm, that cattle wouldn't eat.
An export market.
It was export based, earning foreign currency, and wasn't particularly perishable. So these were the criteria he was looking for, and essential oils ticked all of those boxes. So he started growing those in about 2000, and Natalie and I were
2000.
He commercialized in 2000. He did some experimentation before that, and then at the time, Natalie and I were working in the banking industry in London. And I think my brothers thought he was mad fiddling with these perfumes, and it sparked our interest. We had come home for holidays, and I got really interested in it. And we weren't happy with what we were doing in London. I think when you grow up on a farm, it's a very tangible thing that you're doing. You're producing a crop or raising livestock or something like that. There's a tangibility to what you're doing. While in the banking, where at least the job I was doing, numbers were coming out of a computer. I was jumbling them into boxes and putting them back into the computer. I didn't know where they came from. I didn't know where they were going, but that was my job. So
we've
not at all tangible.
We've got a like a standing joke whenever we go somewhere and we see amazing things, and we get in a car and we leave, and then we would look at each other and says, "Thank goodness we're not accountants."
Exactly. So, yeah.
And having grown up on farms, as the both of you have, I can imagine that the bright lights of London are only interesting and seductive for a while. If you could do what you're doing, and also KZN has fantastic climate for doing what you're doing. I mean, I don't think you could do that. You couldn't manage that in a much colder climate. You really have. It must do extremely well with your weather up there.
Yes and no.
Oh, okay.
So, like Grant says, we've done a lot of trials on different essential oils to farm, and we've now got 6 now that do well. But saying that we certified organic. So with the hot weather, our weeds it's endless. So we have a big group of employees who have to weed constantly throughout the year. So this is just why I'm saying yes and no. It grows very well, but so do the weeds.
So does everything else. Yes. You're right at the beginning of our chat. Let's just, where do consumers make contact with your product? It might just be a good idea for what are your products that people can buy, and where do they buy them?
So, I mean, we sell a range of certified organic aromatherapy products. Those are things like essential oils, carrier oils, massage oils, diffuser oils, things like that. We sell them under our brand, which is called Soil. And the reason for it's called Soil is because it's organic, and the whole story about organic is how you treat the soil. So we thought it was a clever play on word from the S of essential oil and soil. So the brand is called Soil, and we sell through most health and wellness outlets in South Africa, whether it's Dis-Chem, Clicks, Wellness Warehouse, online places like Faithful to Nature, Take a Lot, health and beauty salons. Any health and wellness outlet, there's a good chance you'll find our brand.
But
Yes, we certainly have. I have found your brand in Dis-Chem, and I mean, when I buy essential oils, I buy soil oils. So it's good to know, and it's good to meet you guys, because I mean, I love your product.
Thank you.
But looking at where you started with this, you're looking for something that's exportable, non-perishable, easy to grow, all those kind of things that you listed. And that was in 2000. I think a lot of people only really became aware of essential oils like in the last 10 years, 15 years. I don't know. So what was the road to get that to market from way back then?
Yeah, so I think that I think part of the reason was that we were in London. Initially, say we weren't looking to be involved in the primary production side of things. So we had seen shops like the Body Shop, those type of shops were taking off, and we sort of saw that movement of how people were becoming more interested in natural products and natural remedies. So the idea was, we came home, I was going to market the bulk production of my dad's farm to industry in Europe, and I'd started making contacts before I came back. That was the one side of the business. Then the other side of the business was the creation of a retail brand. And as I think I'm not aware of any other certified organic non-food brand. I think we were the first certified organic non-food brand in South Africa. So it was really early on in the days of organic. Organic really wasn't something a lot of people knew about in 2004. It was sort of just starting to get going. And certainly, essential oils weren't nearly as popular as they are now. So I think we were very fortunate in our timing.
It still took a long time.
But it did take a long time for the brand to really get traction and to become the business it is.
I think it took about 8 years to finally get over the hill and take off. Yeah, it wasn't, like I always say, it was definitely not an overnight success.
Well, that's fantastic.
Patient for. So, yeah.
Well,
I joined in 2010. Full time. I mean, I always did help with we did a lot of expos in the country between 2005 and 2010. And it's funny, there were 2 big natural organic expos in this country, where there was a group of companies, and it was the same companies you saw. So there was luckily that platform to take us to launch ourselves. And I always believe that helped us. Sadly, I don't think those expos are as widely represented anymore, either because they might be too expensive, or I'm not really sure. I don't think they exist anymore. So yeah, we were lucky in our early days. There was that expo, and it definitely did help us get out there, especially in the Cape region.
Okay, very interesting. Well, Louise has written a number of articles on essential oils.
Okay,
Louise, maybe elaborate on. I remember you guys went to do that thing with the rosemary.
Yes. Okay. So the little bit of contact that I've had with essential oils is there's a guy he is near Teslasdal, which is near Hermanus, and he is growing rosemary oil bulk. He's growing a lot of rosemary. It's also
is that Peter Sarno?
Yes. I'm sure you would know.
I know Peter Sarno very well. Yeah, I know him very well. He's a very nice guy. I've done many a trade show with him and things like that. Yes. I know Sarno very well, and his mum, Elmarie.
Exactly, and his mum, and their range, Ellie. The essential oil stuff. I mean, it's incredible, and you can talk about stuff, but when you experience it, it just changes your mind. It's just incredible to see what they were doing. And that's Western Cape based, and the rosemary grows like really well there. And their essential oils from fynbos stuff is also, it's very interesting, and it's a different, exactly as you say, 20 years ago, people wouldn't have given this kind of thing the time of day. But the interest has definitely peaked in that kind of thing. And, you hear it from your friends and family and community that people are definitely interested in this kind of thing. What has been your journey as to people around you? I would imagine 20 years ago they could said you crazy, and now they have a different tune.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, certainly people were very skeptical about what we're doing. I mean, I can tell you now, for example, the tea tree. So we were one of the pioneers of the tea tree industry in South Africa, which in the Natal region has become extremely popular. In fact, too popular. And we now, I think we're certainly the world's biggest supplier of organic tea tree. But it's become so popular that everyone's climbed into it now, and there's a huge oversupply in the world market. So it's quite interesting. I mean, but I think that's normal in farming, in any form of agriculture. When things are good and profitable, everyone climbs into it. Then the prices drop. Then things normalize, and those serious players hang around and stay in it. And then, so the prices normalize, and you carry on. So it's interesting.
It's a business thing. It's I was now in Nelspruit. My brother-in-law, they live in the estate, and they've got a vegetable garden at the back. So, and with it being Nelspruit, you can stick a broomstick in the ground, and in 6 months' time, you'll pick something from it. Yeah. They've had pumpkins and squash and whatever, like heaps of it. So the two cousins put up a little table outside the house with all these vegetables, and they sold everything within a day. The next week, the neighbors had a table as well.
Yeah. No, it is like
exactly that happens.
But Louise, just to go back to the early days of oils, and now Grant and I have been in this industry for 20 years. I'm letting you know we are still learning every single day about this product. There is just so much to learn, and especially with our being certified organic, and there's just so many different families of the same species, and so it's a consistent learning process. And this is the only challenging thing we do find in our country is we still have to educate our customers. And this is especially being organic. And so this is a long-term process because there's still so much to learn and gain out of it.
So
there's a lot of people. The things that people don't understand is what defines the quality of essential oil. And without having gas chromatography and things like that, your average consumer is not going to know what a real oil is and what either a synthetic oil or something like that is. So it's very difficult to compete with people that are not putting the true things on the market. But we believe that is part of why we believe in the organic certification, because that certification audits our whole supply chain and basically our chain of custody, and ensures that what we are selling is actually organic. And our default, because it's organic, it's natural, 100% natural. Can't have any synthetics in it or anything like that.
Well, it's a great benchmark. It sets a standard, and even if you know very little, most people have heard the word organic and have a general, a broad idea of what that means. So I think if you've got that behind you, it must differentiate you quite considerably from your competition. For those that are educated, people that have some idea about this and are prepared to find out more, it must help.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, as to what does the organic certification really mean to you guys? But now you've explained it before I could ask it. But just out of curiosity, if people have got organic certification, does that mean that you can charge more for something, or is it one of those things that the market is so flooded that it only differentiates you by quality?
I mean, I think part of it is it forces you to charge more because your costs are higher.
Yes.
It's an annual process.
It's an ongoing process.
It's an ongoing process. It's not just once. Okay, now it's an every year EcoCert come and they certify us. And it's an expensive process as well.
We know.
So I think it's a bit of a barrier to trade as well, because we've got this certification now. For someone else to get it, it is quite expensive. So it almost creates a bit of a barrier to trade for us. I think in terms of, there's a lot of conventional, what I'd call conventional oils. So nothing, they're 100% pure, they're high quality, they're just not produced organically. There's a lot of brands out there who charge more than what we charge. But I think they're charging unreasonably, or else they've got poor supply chains and their costs are too high. I think where we've been lucky is that because our number one, we produce a lot of our products, so obviously there's no middleman involved in the products we produce. Where we are buying oils in, I know a lot of those producers personally, and I buy directly from the farmers. So that keeps our costs down, and then all our production is on our farm, so we're not paying high rents. Those are sort of sunk costs. The production facility is built, it's paid for. So we have a relatively low overhead structure, and that enables us to be very competitive on our pricing. And in many cases, I'd say when you're looking at on a quality for quality basis, a brand of the equal quality but conventional, not certified organic, we're very competitive on price, and sometimes even better price than those.
Oh, that's good. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Wow.
So what percentage of your product is sold on the export market? Are you aiming to go more to the export market? What are your strategies on expansion?
At the moment, we're very well represented in South Africa. So we realized, and we did realize this a few years ago, to grow and to learn more, we have to go into the export market. But we did start quite early with it, and I think it was 2006 or 7.
No, 16.
No, with Dubai.
Oh, with Dubai.
Yeah,
Sorry, I thought you were going on EU registration.
At an expo, the National Organic Expo in Cape Town, I think early days of Soil. And we had a buyer from Dubai, UAE, come round, and I only had 7 oils on my table at the time. And he took a sample with, and I think it took him a year, and he called us. So, and they are still our customer. And I think through that, we learned about the export market, because it's not, we are also EU registered now. But funny enough, we're not in the EU yet. Oh, just Romania. Yeah, just Romania.
I think we are exporting. Our exports are growing every year as in terms of our products sold. So we are between 25 and 30% of our sales are export sales. And the main markets we're exporting into are Romania, Sweden, the UK, and the USA. And then we've had this one company
from Dubai
that has it's a small chain in Dubai that we've stocked, as Natalie says, for about 15 years.
Yeah.
Okay, exciting.
We are wanting to grow the export market.
Unfortunately, we don't see many significant opportunities for growth locally, just because we've been fortunate enough to have done so well. Like I say, we're in Clicks, we're in Dis-Chem, Wellness Warehouse, independent retailers, online. There's really not a lot of sort of ground to break unless we go into new types of products. But in terms of that health and wellness space, we're fortunate to have done very well and are well represented in that space.
Well done. It's definitely the brand that we know. I know when I walk into a place like that, I see your brand. So long before we made contact with you guys, I know the brand, and as you say, it's taken 2 decades of establishing it, from a time where you guys really were the early pioneers to where you are today.
Yeah.
Went to lab school.
Yeah. So my question, when we were chatting to Barbara, she said one of the problems that you have faced, or one of the problems that your product faces, is the hype around essential oils, which has been created by certain people in the United States about it being a replacement for medicine, and how that affects you just trying to sell your product in a normal way, that there's this whole hype that's been created That must impact on you guys in some way.
Yeah, it has. I mean, a lot of them are, or they primarily are those multi-level marketing companies.
Yes.
And one of the things that we do not advocate is the ingestion of essential oils. So, I mean, these essential oils are highly potent aroma chemicals. They're natural chemicals, but they are chemicals at the end of the day. Highly concentrated chemicals. And these companies, in what I believe is just an effort to increase the use of the product and thereby drive sales, are advocating the ingestion of these oils in all sorts of things, putting a couple of drops in your drinking water, putting it directly into your tongue. And from the research I've done, the ingestion of essential oils should only be prescribed by a medical practitioner. And in places like France, where aromatherapy had its origins, there are medical practitioners, proper doctors, these are medical doctors with degrees who do prescribe it, but they prescribe it and they say, you must take this much. It's not just people drinking oils as and when they wish. So the problem we have is that on our label, we say, do not take internally.
Yes.
And we've had as people turning around and they say, well, you know, soil oils, they're not pure. They say you can't even drink them. You know, so they can't be pure if you can't drink them.
I can imagine that it must muddy the waters for you guys somewhat, that these people are going around and doing kind of, sorry to say, quack medicine, with drinking things that were never meant to be drunk. And you're trying to, yeah, I would imagine it must actually be a bit awkward. You've probably had some funny phone calls about this kind of thing as well.
Yeah, we have. And I've taken people to task on it. The problem is the nature of those businesses, that you have multiple people selling them, making claims that the manufacturer or brand owner just can say, oh, well, we never said that. It's not our official position. And I mean, we had a lot of instances where people were literally taking a picture of a soil bottle and saying, this is absolute rubbish, don't use this, as blatantly as that.
But we also had on social media where they used the soil name for people to click, but it would take to one of those multimedia marketing companies' websites.
Yeah, they'd advertise our oil, but then it would take them to their sites. Yeah.
It's gone. It was, I think it was in 2020. It was quite in our face. But at the same time, it's very expensive, those oils. So I think people could not all afford them. And secondly, if you we sometimes look at the positive sides, it actually has brought more people's attention to essential oils. So with all these people going out. So it's what they advocate hasn't been entirely correct. And I think there was a handful of people, just to make money, but had to compete with soil, hence why they were discriminating soil. But I haven't had that recently.
No, it's gone away.
But it's something
that's great.
We just battled through it, and there's nothing we actually could do.
But we actually converted a lot of a lot of people end up being converted over to soil and become our clients. So, like Natalie says, the positive of it is that they created a lot of awareness around aromatherapy and essential oils in general. And I think purely because they were literally 8 to 10 times more expensive than us. And after a while, people realized that, they're paying this amount of money for the same thing. And I believe they've actually helped us in some ways in terms of creating markets.
Can you imagine?
The funny part is that, as I said to you earlier, I used to sell the bulk oils to manufacturing in Europe and that, but it just became too much for me to do everything as the brand grew. So I gave my clients, we created a cooperative, which is also on my farm here. So there's a cooperative next door called Ayanda African Oils, and they handle the wholesale of essential oils to international clients, and they represent 31 farmers here in KZN and in a bit of Mpumalanga. And we actually sell our tea tree oil to those same companies. So you know,
I mean, we've had those buyers on our veranda, so it's quite ironic that.
Yeah, we've entertained the buyers from those companies, and they're selling South African tea tree oil that comes off member farms. Yet they're making a big story of how much better theirs is than ours.
Well, as long as it works for you guys, and if there's been a positive spin-off from this kind of strange situation, well, that's good news.
No, there's no such thing as bad publicity.
Yeah,
exactly. Some of it was quite bad, but we managed to sort it out. But I don't think people believed it, so it was fine.
Well, that's the wonderful thing about the wonderful and the bad thing about social media is all the armchair warriors that's there. They sit behind a cell phone screen and they type these stupid things, but it creates more awareness. I think if something gets shared 10,000 times, probably 8,000 of those 10,000 shares is actually people that's got a bit between the ears that can think for themselves a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so looking down the road, what are your plans? Are you planning to grow considerably? Are you planning to go straight for the export market? I mean, you've done so well in South Africa.
We're definitely wanting to grow. It's just how we want to grow. So I think our next steps are we want to expand our product range and bring more a body range.
And home fragrance.
And home fragrance. I don't know if you've noticed, home fragrance is huge. Candles, reed diffusers. We're just saying clothing companies, they're now having small sections with, home fragrances. So we have been approached by some retailers, and so we're busy working. And again, we're learning. We are definitely wanting to grow. And I think the way we're going to grow is going more on a different range of products.
I think then from an international perspective, we are working. We've got some exposure to some nice markets like the UK and the US. So we're going to try and build, especially the US market. It's such a big market. So we've got a distributor there who we're working with, and we're hoping to build that market and also grow a lot more on our private brand stuff. So as I said to you, we produce private label products for some 3 or 4 retailers in South Africa, one in Europe and one in the US. So that's a trend that's out there at the moment. Is this retailers are looking for a lot of private brand product, and we're able to offer a really nice range of certified organic aromatherapy products to these retailers. So that's something we're trying to exploit a bit more.
Fantastic. And if you, we're chatting like this, we have no idea of the size of your business. How would you define that? The number of, amount of oil that you produce, the number of people that work for you? I don't know. Give us some kind of idea.
I mean, so we on the farm, we employ almost 100 people.
Wow,
on the primary production side of things. And then within the products business, there's about 20 of us. So about 120 people within our business as a whole. And then in terms of, I think a metric to look at might be the number of units we produce. So we sell almost about 800 to 850,000 products a year.
Wow.
Units of
wow.
So it's a decent sized business.
And we've got lovely staff. So we all have our true responsibilities, but everyone can do everything. Just because, if the one's sick, this one can take over. And I'll be honest, I'm very proud of our staff. They came from a background of not much skills, and Grant and I have trained them. Because in the area where we are, there isn't a lot of skilled people. It's quite a high unemployed area. So most of our staff came from the fields, and they are now in the admin office and have worked themselves up. And I've never seen so many people being so proud of what they do. So so we've got an amazing team. We could probably double in size and still keep the same team.
In terms of
production. In terms of production. No one's too scared to work.
Yes. That's incredible. So you're making a big difference at a grassroots level right there where you are.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's, obviously it's nice to have financial success and things like that. But I think one of the most rewarding things has been seeing how the people in our business have developed. Like Natalie says, they're people who started as general laborers in the field, and they've progressed. Whenever we've needed to employ people, we've always tried to source people internally. So we've had some people who have made their way from the field up into our admin block, and they're doing a great job. And we've got a number of. I've had to build a car park and garaging. You can't believe how many people have been able to buy their first car in their whole family, and it's really rewarding. We've helped people get driver's licenses and things like that. So
fantastic!
That's really been a special part of
that's
growing.
Incredible. That is incredible. So, and if you were to just a general message to anybody that's listening to the podcast about essential oils, what would encourage people to use essential oils? What do people tell you? Why did they start using essential oils? Or have you got a comment on that?
Firstly, essential oils are, as I said to you, they are chemicals, but they're natural chemicals, and they have been the building blocks of a lot of modern medicines. So they have documented chemical attributes to these oils, and they impart certain properties on you, and that's it's science. It's not hocus pocus. It's been proven. But I think the great thing about it is if used correctly and responsibly, they can add to your well-being by being used in small doses, in infusions, in your bath, things like that. In addition to the obvious things like helping you breathe with oils like eucalyptus and peppermint. So I think it's a great route to natural wellness, and knowing that you're using a product that especially where we're growing it organically, actually has a positive effect on the environment.
So you told about the cooperative side, Ayanda.
Yes.
Can somebody like me now start growing essential oils and supplying you guys, or how does that work? Or do you need to be vetted, or?
Yeah, so it's a private company, and It's run on a sort of cooperative ethos. So each shareholder has one share, regardless of how much they put into the cooperative, and it has zero profit motive. The company, everything gets paid back to the member farmers on a pro rata basis according to what they've sold. So basically, what we're doing is we are pooling the marketing of those oils. That's effectively what we're doing. At one stage, we were looking for members, but as I say, at the moment, we would only really consider someone new if they were producing, as long as they weren't producing tea tree, because we have an oversupply of tea tree. So we're not really in a position to take on new members under tea tree. But if there was a new interesting crop, essential oil crop that, or not necessarily new, but something different from what we're growing here in Natal, then it would certainly be something we'd consider. But our main crop in that cooperative is tea tree. Certainly not looking for any more tea tree growers at the moment, unfortunately.
So what other crops could be interesting prospects for essential oils in the future? Like, I know Louise has got a quite good knowledge of the local flora specifically, because where she lives, she's got a lot of Bushman rock art, and they used to use a lot of the natural plants in the veld. Is there anything that could be possible future things that you've seen in the market, or that people talk about?
There are some lovely indigenous oils, like Louise mentioned, especially the fynbos oils, things like Cape chamomile and oils like that. They're lovely, and they've got stunning aroma profiles. But I think what we need to do is lobby government to try and assist in doing things like toxicology testing and the likes. There's a lot of research that has to be done and published in order to allow a plant extract to be used commercially. So, but I think my understanding of the costs of that is that it's prohibitively high, and it's not really something a small business or farmer can take on. So in terms of indigenous crops, that would be my view. I mean, I think the most well-known indigenous aroma extract from South Africa is rose geranium. So even though that is actually a hybridized plant, the basis of that is sort of from the Eastern Cape region down into the Western Cape. That's a beautiful aromatic oil, beautiful fragrance oil, a substitute for rose. We did grow that for a while. It was actually one of the sort of the main crop that got us into essential oils. But it's a very difficult crop to grow, and the problem you have is that if it can be grown more economically in a different country, it's very difficult to compete. So, for example, now most of the rose geranium oil is grown in Madagascar. It's very labor intensive, and our relatively high labor rates just don't make it viable for us to produce here, unfortunately.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're trialing a number of plants. I mean, as I say, we're looking a lot at the grasses like lemongrass, palmarosa, citronella. We are already growing those. I mean, we've grown lemongrass for a long time.
But we're expanding.
We're expanding on that. Another interesting facet of essential oil farming is, ensuring you have the right genetics.
Okay.
So when we started with tea tree, we got very excited because it was doing so well, and I imported some seed, planted up maybe 15, 20 hectares of tea tree, harvested it, sent it off, and I harvested the original block plus all these new blocks, and I sent a sample of the first drum, which happened to be the original block. The sample was approved, sent 10 drums off. When they received it on the other side, they said, "What are you doing? What is this rubbish you're sending us?" And you can't discern between the two plants. They look identical. I can't tell you the difference, but the genetics created an oil that was different and out of specification, and it was a waste. I mean, so we're constantly trying to source good genetics, and I mean, our lemongrass oil is good, but we've now found a variety that at least gives us a higher yield oil-wise with the same oil quality. So these are things that are constantly evolving and that we're moving into. So you can't just, and I'll give an example is lavender. The first essential oil everyone thinks of is lavender. And people say, well, why don't you grow lavender? Well, lavender needs a winter rainfall, not a summer rainfall. So Natal and sort of north of the country is excluded. But I don't even believe you can grow it successfully in the Cape. And then people say, but it grows brilliantly in my garden. And you say, well, that's right, but that's not the correct variety for essential oils. So it's a beautiful garden variety, lavender, but it's not necessarily it won't yield an oil with the correct aroma and chemical profile. So we've spent a lot of school fees,
like I always say,
on trying to establish trying to acquire the right genetic material that gives you an oil with the correct aroma profile.
Cool, but
you have your own R&D department. I mean, you have to, as you're going on and as you're developing things, you have to do the research and development on your own, because it's such a new field that you have to. It's trial and error a lot of the time, as you say. It's interesting.
Exactly. And I mean, especially in the perfumery market, there are some small nuances when you extract the oil that you need to make sure you don't put too much heat in, but the right amount of steam. Otherwise, some of the notes get burnt off. So even on the chemical profile can be right. Perfect and within specification. If you send it away to the wholesale market and the perfumer just doesn't like it or picks up a note that they just reject it. So it's quite a complicated and difficult environment to work in, because you've got to understand what determines the quality, both from an olfactory side and from a chemical side. So it's interesting in that regard.
And those things were not on that checklist when your dad started it way back then.
And not on your when you're an accountant and it's easy to farm on a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
I was about to say, I'm sure it probably beats, but it still beats working in London with figures.
Yeah, no, it does.
It does do that. But yeah, we learned that I mean, developing macadamias and all these things.
Yeah, we're learning. As I said, we're always learning. That business spreadsheet does change a lot.
It's never as good as it was on the spreadsheet, I can tell you that.
Yeah. But on that topic now, with the different varieties, which is interesting, we've worked with quite a few of the fruit breeding varieties, or the variety breeders. Is that available? Are there those kind of people in the essential oil industry as well, or is it you test a lot and see which one is the best?
Yeah, I think, essential oils it's still very niche compared to food production. Although it's such an interesting industry, because you won't believe where you'll find essential oils. I mean, you open your kitchen cupboard, from foods to Coca-Cola to your cleaning products, essential oils are on all of them. So even though it's used widely in our lives, without even being aware of it, it's still a very niche sort of farming sector. And there aren't big, there are no real big players involved, and there's not a lot of research into the side of the business that's widely available. It's not, you can't, there's not a lot of easy information that's accessible.
Interesting. Could that be a future? Like, I know there's a lot of youngsters that's going to university. They want to do something in agriculture or in genetics or things like that. Could there be a possibility to go into that field and research that more to produce better plants?
I definitely think so. And it would help people like us if there was like a guideline.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely, there's opportunities, like I say, to improve yield. There's always opportunities to improve yield through genetic selection and things like that. Obviously, there's actually some really interesting things going on with aroma chemicals now, but instead of extracting them from plants, they're actually using yeasts and sugars, and the yeast producing things. That's way above my pay grade, but just interesting. People are looking at even different ways of getting the same natural chemical. But again, it's never going to be exactly the same. I think that the interesting thing about essential oils is generally, I've said many times in this interview that they are aroma chemicals. But I think what's so interesting is how complex those aroma chemicals are. So while there'll be sort of 3 or 4 main compounds that will be the biggest determining factor on quality, a lot of these oils have more than 100 different aroma compounds that make up the whole oil. And that's what makes them so complex and gives each growing area sort of a nuanced fragrance or flavor.
Wow.
Absolutely fascinating. It's really been interesting to learn about this.
Yeah, we played around at home with making soaps and things like that, and which is also very cool. It's like playing a chemist in your kitchen.
Yeah.
And we bought essential oils. We had essential oils that we just had, that Karen, my wife, would put into her bath water and things like that. That worked fantastically in the soaps. And then she went to the shop and she bought some, and she put it in exactly the same measurements and everything. And it was like the soap just it froze up. It just went like solid pieces immediately. And I said, well, the only thing that was different was the essential oils that you put in. So it must have been like the synthetic oils that you've spoke about. It's quickly how you see it if you start playing around with those things.
Yeah. No, you're right. So I think that's what we like to think, is that people have got to know Soil over the years, and we're a trusted brand, and they at least can be confident that when they buy a bottle of our product, that what we say on the label is actually what they're getting. So that's
yeah. But I'm just listening to your wife's story about the soap. We are, like I said, I want to go more into the body care range, and it's in South Africa, we really do struggle to find formulators who know how to work with organic ingredients. We could get a beautiful product, but it's too expensive to sell. So we've got a lot of challenges with that, is to get formulators. And that's why I'm saying I do think there is a need for this kind of like university, how to work and research how to work with organic products to make a new product. So, we have endless problems with that at the moment.
Well, because you're the pioneers. It's not tried and tested. You're doing the trying and the testing.
Yes, so we are. It's quite challenging.
Can well imagine.
Yeah.
And in fact, the university students should come and listen to you, not the other way around.
True. But we need the expertise.
Yeah.
Yes.
But could it be worthwhile for you guys to employ a full-time chemist to do that kind of thing?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, especially now more that we sort of going into more formulated products. We know a lot of the products we sold were single ingredient products. We've made use of external laboratories to do our testing and things like that. So that's pretty easy and a cheaper way of doing it. But certainly it is something we've been mulling over in terms of trying to find maybe a cosmetic scientist who we can use in our formulations and who, by working with us, will understand the organic regulations, because we actually hold 2 organic certifications. So the farmer's certified according to EU and US NDA, US Department of Agriculture organic standards. But you can imagine that you can't necessarily apply organic farming standards to making a cosmetics product. So we also have EcoCert's organic cosmetic standard, which we apply to our products, to our finished products. So we actually have
EcoCert, sorry, is EcoCert international or British or?
they're French, but international. So they're French based, but they have offices all over the world.
They've just opened their office here in
They
South
have an
Africa.
office in Cape Town,
Yeah.
in the Cape.
Cape Town open, and not for food, for cosmetic.
Yeah. Oh no, they do both.
No, they do both, but the cosmetic one was never in South Africa.
Yes.
So and it's just recently moved to South Africa.
Is that the same company that will do the assessments if you are an organic farmer of, let's say, grapes or citrus or something like that?
Correct.
Yes.
So they're different standards, but the same certification agency.
Okay.
But now the problem is there's a whole set of rules that governs what you can and can't do in the creation of a cosmetic product. And most, like Natalie was saying earlier, we've been through multiple cosmetic scientists trying to develop a range of products. We've been busy for the last 3 years, and we always seem to stumble at the last hurdle because the person's used some ingredient that's not allowable, or else they've stuck to the rules, but then the product actually is not stable. So it's hugely challenging. Whereas, I mean, to do it, a conventional product, a body lotion, a body wash,
You can launch that in a week.
I could do that in a week. It would be a piece of cake.
Here we're waiting 3 years for our products to get them right.
And
So
you particularly want to have it say organic on it.
certified organic, yeah.
We do, because that's our ethos, and that's what we built our brand around. So, you can start cutting corners, but then where does it lead?
Yes. Yeah.
So we've trying our best to stay true to our ethos of being a natural and organic brand. So,
Well, hats off to that, because I think a lot of people would have thrown in the towel a long time ago and just said, screw this, let's just go the commercial route.
Very tempting.
it is tempting. I just think we're lucky we've got the rest of the business that's going well,
that we can afford to wait.
we can afford to wait. So.
Oh, well done.
Hopefully soon.
Interesting.
Now, we're coming up on an hour, and we've got a closing tradition that the previous guest leaves a question for the next one. They don't know who it's going to be or who is asked the question, but it's something random, and it's usually agriculture related, but it can be anything. You can literally ask them what's your favorite color if you want to, and you're gonna give us one as well afterwards.
Okay, we're going to think of one. They're going to give us one now. Are you going to give us a question now?
We're about to ask you a question now.
Yeah. So I just want to.
Meantime, we must think of one to leave with you.
Yes,
And-
yes.
Yes.
We can do that once we finished our chat as well.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a broad question, and it can be related to your market, or it can be related to the industry in general, or anything like that. What would you envision to be the next big revolution, let's say in agriculture?
I think being in especially in organic agriculture, I think something like AI-driven automated weeders, something like that. I think I think using AI-enabled tools to mechanize a lot of the current manual aspects of organic farming. I mean, it's already happening that, one thing about organic, you say without the use of chemical inputs, it does mean that you rely more heavily on labor, but that is obviously extremely expensive. So, I've seen a couple of things online where they got these lasers that are zapping weeds and things like that. I think that's going to become more prevalent in organic agriculture and will hopefully enable the cost of organic produce to come down and to ultimately reduce the amount of chemicals that we use in conventional agriculture. I think that's going to be one of the revolutions.
Yeah, and just something to tie into the organic part and your commercial agriculture operation with the sugar and the macadamias. I presume there's got to be quite a big green belt or corridor between the two operations so that you can keep that organic and farm those commercially.
Fairly. I mean, it's not as big as you would think, actually, but we have kept we've kept the essential oil farming in one section of the farm, and I mean, there's very.
You do have to let the field sit.
Well, so I mean, as we've converted, there's a 3-year conversion period.
Yes.
So in order to go from your conventional, because the farm we ended up buying, as I say, and we went a bit backwards. I say we started this brand up in Durban in 2004. We actually only. The two of us bought our first farm here on the coast, which is far away from, a couple of hours each from where we grew up. We only bought our first farm in 2010, and they were sugarcane farms. So we went through a process of, while my dad had essential oils on his farm, we went through a process of converting the land from conventional agriculture to organic agriculture. So that's a 3-year phase. In terms of green belts and that, yes, there are, I mean, very demarcated areas where you can't, you can't spray X many meters from a field, and where there's things like if there's any aerial spraying or something like that, there can't be drift that allows that pesticide to go over onto our crops. And we do regardless of whether the crop is organic or not, we do a fair amount of pesticide residue analysis on the oils. To ensure that there hasn't been any contamination.
Yes. Oh, it's so interesting to hear these things and how people operate their businesses, especially with it being a niche thing like organic, because a lot of people just see the label organic, but they've got no idea what goes into it.
No, especially on the international trade side. I mean, things like phthalate contamination. So that comes from using plastic. A phthalate is a plasticizer. It makes plastic soft, but those can be absorbed from the container you use into the product you're doing. These are things your average person doesn't even think about. But these are all, when you're doing international trade, these are all the parameters that have got to be checked and make sure that you don't have that type of contamination in the produce that you're selling.
Wow, very interesting.
Extremely interesting. Thank you so much. It's been so fascinating chatting to you.
And yeah, it's been a pleasure. Yeah. It's great to chat to you too.
Yeah, so we can wrap this up, and I'll cut it here when we put it out. So if you've got a question ready, we can go there. And